Well, truly a two halves, and depending on if you look at this glass as half full or half empty, Tennessee played well at times against Alabama in what would have been a considerable upset, but some questionable decisions and some poor playmaking or lack thereof by Joe Milton late in the game led to what on the scoreboard looks like a pretty easy victory by Alabama as they're able to beat the Vols 34-20. Let's get right into it as this is the Big Wrap, and it's brought to you by our friends at Hemp House of Chattanooga and Harrell Group Security Solutions. So, Caleb, I like to go in broad scope. What did you think of Tennessee's football game and the way they played? The first half, it looked like things were going pretty good for the Vols.
Yeah, I think where this comes down to, if I'm going to be honest, is I think Alabama, they just won the line of scrimmage on defense against Tennessee, and that changed the game. I give Joe Milton a lot of credit for running the ball and finally adding that into his offense, but the truth of the matter is Tennessee couldn't run the ball in this game outside of Joe Milton's runs himself. Jalen Wright never got going. Dylan Sampson never got going, even though he did average like 7 yards a carry, and Jabari Small never got going. And I think the interior of Alabama's D-line, look, I thought Texas A&M's interior was better than Alabama's, but after watching them both for 2 weeks, Alabama's interior defensive line looked way better. I can't really say Cooper Mays or Javonte Spraggins played poorly. I didn't really notice them getting beat. I just thought Alabama was closing in, and every time Tennessee tried to run the ball.
Kind of felt like a stalemate, and Tennessee is not the type of program that can stalemate other opponents. They're a running football team. They need to win the line of scrimmage. They don't have a Hendon Hooker or a Jalen Hyatt to bail them out. We want to hear your messages on the message board, so go ahead and get it up there. It's brought to you by Harrell Group Security Solutions, leadership experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, also making your children safer in private schools. We're going to get them in public schools as too. HarrellGRP.com. And say this about Joe Milton. He wasn't an all-star. He wasn't a Hendon Hooker from last year, but in the first half, I thought he played at a high, efficient level, which Tennessee would probably take that first half performance for the rest of the season if they could get it. Caleb, wouldn't you think so?
Yeah, and I didn't really have much to criticize about his second half performance. I don't think the opportunities were there.
Agreed.
And I think Joe Milton is what we thought he would be. The indictment against Joe Milton, and we're seeing this is guys, take this with the silver lining. Championships are out the window now. You got 2 SEC losses. George is not losing a game before Tennessee. You're not winning the East, but you're still having 9 or 10 win season on the table. Your third year after losing Hendon Hooker the year before you have Nico, and Joe Milton has an element to his game that can make Tennessee a threat down the road now. I don't know why Tennessee hasn't used him to run the ball more. And I think you saw that in this game where Alabama was selling out to stop him over the middle. He ran outside, and you notice, Dave, the minute he did that, the deep shots were there. And we've been seeing the whole time, if he uses his legs, the deep shots are there. I know people are going to blame officials. People are going to get mad about things. Guys, the truth of the matter is, if you really watch that game start to finish, Alabama's a better team. They have better talent.
I came away feeling that as well. At the end of the game, I thought, Tennessee, I thought there was a period in the third quarter when Alabama was mounting their comeback that Tennessee could still win the football game. But as that third quarter, it was like they just kind of pushed you towards the edge of saying, Alabama's just still a little bit better from 1 to 85. This on our message board, Heupel chose the pass over the run, and he chose Joe over Jalen. His call, we live with it, and tonight he died with it. I don't feel bad about it because he chose Joe, the pass, in spite of our run. Showed a lot of confidence in Joe Milton that they put so much him, in particular on the first half. They put so much on him. And it just goes to what I've said before, Caleb, and I think I've been spot on this. They love Joe Milton. They're going to stick with Joe Milton. Something very, very bad is going to have to happen for Nico Iamaleava to play, and it's nowhere close to that. And they believe in Joe Milton. They still do to this point, despite some things we've seen previously.
And Joe Milton delivered based on what we know he can do in the first half. He
absolutely did.
Yeah, guys, people are going to say he abandoned the run. They couldn't run the ball. I don't know if you guys were watching the same game I was watching. Tennessee had 2 4th and 1s and was stopped on both of them trying to run the ball. 4th and half an inch. The running game wasn't there in this one. Alabama was very clearly, they were bunched up in the middle most of the time because, as you know, Dave, Tennessee's offense is a vertical rushing attack. There's not many counter plays or stretch run plays. It's a
Right.
vertical attack. Alabama bunched up their line and they said, we're not going to let you beat us running up the middle. We're not going to do that. We don't care what happens the rest of the game. You're not going to do that to us. And that's why Joe Milton's runs were there on the outside so much. Now, the good news for Tennessee is they go to Kentucky next week. We talk about resetting the clock. If you're Kentucky, you watch film from this game and you say, oh, we can't sell out from that game because Joe Milton's going to beat us on the outside. And that adds a whole other element to this offense. Alabama's just a better football team, guys.
You're right. 28 of 41, 271 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Of course, the strip sack that resulted in a fumble. But if Joe Milton plays like that the rest of the season, Tennessee's definitely in a New Year's Day bowl. I don't think there's any question about it. But what you have with this loss, because of the loss in Gainesville, is essentially any hope for a championship whatsoever, be it SEC East, SEC, of course, national championship, getting the college football playoff. I guess crazy things could happen like they did almost with LSU last year, where they were knocking at the door with a couple of regular season losses. But it's essentially not going to happen. Now, Tennessee, though, doesn't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater and start thinking about next year and thinking about Nico. I don't believe that's the case whatsoever. I do believe, and I've said this before this loss, Caleb, and you know it, back me, that Nico should have seen some more significant playing time. But Tennessee's coach just kind of called my bluff and said, look, the Joe guy's playing pretty well. So maybe it just took him some time to get acclimated as the new starter once again. If he plays like this the rest of the way, we have no complaints about Joe.
None whatsoever. And for people that are wanting to give up on the season because the championship is any championship is hopes are gone. What have you guys done the last 25 years? Because Tennessee hasn't won any sort of championship since 1998. And I got to be honest with you guys. Where did you think Tennessee was going to be in 2022, 2023 when Josh Heupel took over 3 years ago? I mean, again, we all thought, I did, if you looked at this through clear view glasses, that best case scenario for Tennessee this year was if everybody stayed healthy, that they could maybe be in the hunt for the SEC East at the end of November. Well, everybody didn't stay healthy. Cooper Mays got hurt in the first 4 games of the year, and there were a few other things that happened. 75% of America at the beginning of the year would have picked Alabama to win this game. Probably 95% would have picked Alabama to win this game, honestly. And so maybe not 90, but
80, not 95, but okay. Anyway.
Yeah, 80. Now, if you want to couple that with the Florida loss, yes. But again, Tennessee wasn't in a position where Cooper Mays was hurt in that game. Tennessee's not at the level where they're going to be a regular in November contending for the East yet. Now, you think in a year they might be, but a drop-off was to be expected. I think in Heupel's 3rd year, given what he lost, Dave, the chance to go 9-3 and go to a New Year's Day bowl is a huge accomplishment and statement for where the program's at.
Couple of comments from the message board. We want to hear from you, so go ahead and put them out there. I want to be sure I clarify something. Gary pointed out blindside strip sack isn't on Milton. Totally agree. Totally agree. So if I inferred that in any shape, form, or fashion, that was not my point. And then we were out coached. Pathetic. I didn't really think that, but I am going to take umbrage with one of the 3rd down calls. And you're kind of a nouveau thinker when it comes to football. So you could say, Dave, you're an idiot. What are you talking about? But this whole concept of it's on your side of the 50 and it's 4th and 1 and you go for it just almost automatically is bizarre to me. And it led to the go-ahead touchdown that Alabama had when Tennessee didn't convert. You've got to kick that ball, especially with a very good punter, pin them back deep inside the 10, make them do it for 90 yards. They were 0 for 3 in 4th downs. I didn't really have a problem with the other 2. I had a problem with that one before the ball was snapped. I'm not doing hindsight 2020, Caleb. What did you think?
I didn't have a problem with it. Sorry. I believe in probabilities. And here's now I'm going to have to maybe reset my feeling on this. My thoughts on punts being overused were based on data, and the odds of converting 4th and 3s are shorter. But we'll talk about Tennessee in the red zone. But Dave, this isn't a Tennessee thing. This is a football thing in general. I don't know if you've noticed football this year, NFL and college. Short field offenses have been horrendous. Red zone play has been terrible in the NFL, and 4th and 1 plays have been terrible in the NFL and college. The QB sneak is, I don't know how that's a lost art in football. I don't know why that's never used anymore. And I know that Josh Heupel, you have your quarterback run out of the shotgun every play, and it's really hard to get under center when you play out of shotgun every play. But can't you just once a week run the QB sneak play in practice just to make sure you know how to do it? Because there was twice I thought Joe Milton is 6'5", 245 pounds. If you need a yard to get, he should be able to get a yard on a quarterback sneak. And Tom Brady never failed on a quarterback sneak because he knew where to fall. And I'm sorry, I don't mind going for it on 4th and 1.
I love people when they give that stat about Tom Brady. It's not really hard. It's which side the defensive tackle shades on the guard.
Exactly.
I mean, you and I could do that. It's nudge the left rear, nudge the right rear. That's where we're going, kids.
But they're not coaching that with quarterbacks right now.
And you're right. Joe Milton on a 4th and 1 should get the ball unless it's a long one. Let's say 5 feet. He should get the ball every single time in an A-gap period. Into discussion. I love Tennessee's running backs, but they don't need to be touching it at all. Squirrel played well. I knew he would. I told you on Friday. His name suddenly escapes me, but Alabama had an injury I was told of their defender who primarily defends the slot. He still played, but Squirrel's just good. The fact that they're getting the slot receiver involved is big. I don't think it's just because of the injury on Alabama's side, but it was a factor. Patrick says, I want to ask you this, on a neutral field without outside influence, I think you're talking about the refs, which I don't get into unless they're blatantly bad on one side. On a neutral field without outside influence, they played well enough to cover and have a shot at the, I don't know what ENG.
I think he meant to say end.
End. Okay, and now take the loss out on Kentucky. Guys, if this is where you are in year 3 in Josh Heupel, you essentially go down to Alabama after making them mad in a hornet's nest last year, because they were, and you essentially lose a 1-touchdown game. The strip sack made it look different, and it was not good for gamblers at all, Caleb. But it
was for me, because guess who bet on Alabama to cover?
Well, anyway, so it was good for Caleb. Great, Caleb. The Tennessee fan nation is happy. But Caleb, it was just not. If this is where you are in year 3 to go to Alabama and hang toe-to-toe in their style of game, it's not necessarily a bad thing in the grand scheme of things.
No, it's not at all. And look, and also don't forget this, guys. Alabama didn't get on their run until Kamal Hadden got hurt. And I mean, if Kamal Hadden is healthy, do they still win that game? I think they probably do, because I think the real story of Alabama was they moved the ball on the ground so well in the second half outside of that, oh my gosh, my mind's drawing a blank, but that first touchdown drive. But I got to be honest, for the most part, Kamal Hadden going out, they hit that deep shot. That totally changed the game. I mean, that really was the difference in the game.
Agreed.
The Kamal Hadden deep shot.
This on the message board. Be sure to hit the like button right now and subscribe. Like button and subscribe, because Sunday we're going to have the Vol Report with Cooper Mays and the Vol Report with Jacob Ward, and also that Sunday show with Fred. Big Sunday. So hit the subscribe, turn your notifications on. If you're on our audio platform, give us a review. We appreciate that. And make sure your notifications on. Gary says 9-3 is still there. If we can get that, Joe, the rest of the year, I'm not worried about Kentucky or Missouri. I'm pushing some more chips in. 10-2 is still there if you get that, Joe. At home,
yeah, at home against the Georgia team.
I'm not predicting Tennessee will beat Georgia, but it's in play.
It's absolutely in play. And Georgia will have had an emotional game against Ole Miss the week before, because Lane Kiffin's going to ruffle some feathers for that game, because Lane Kiffin is Lane Kiffin and does what he does. But guys, I'm sorry. I don't know what I have to take to convince y'all. Stop writing off Missouri. They're a good, dangerous football team. And Tennessee has to go to Missouri.
And the top half, which was Tennessee last year of the SEC, has come back to the pack. So I agree with you. I thought Missouri was going to get Eli fired this year, but that's not going to be the case. SW fan says, without the strip sack, we still could have won. Some games just go that way. Not last year's. Remember, they had the mesh exchange that resulted in a fumble, and that team had the maturity to say, let's bring it down. Now, there was a little bit less time, I believe, in this game, but not much.
That was also only to put Alabama up by a touchdown. This one put Alabama up by 2 touchdowns, and they were at home.
Right, but point being, if it didn't happen, you're down a score, and maybe something happens. I still, though, not to rain on anybody's Joe Milton parade, who played pretty well, I've got to see him lead a 2-minute drive late in the fourth quarter to win a game, to make me think that he can do that. So I don't know that you win just without the strip sack.
And we also have to add this element with Joe Milton, because I talked a lot about his intangibles in the sense of, does he panic when he's on the field? Do his nerves get the best of him? Is he unclutch? Put it that way. And let's be honest, Dave, playing Alabama on the road, you're not playing with the same pressure on you, because no one's really going to blame you if you lose to Alabama on the road. You know what I mean? So
I think you're being a little too psychiatrist there. I mean, the guy came out and played well.
I think Joe, yes, because there weren't expectations on him. The pressure was totally off. I think it's a lot harder when there are expectations on you, and again, nobody expected him to ball out against Alabama. I think I argue that the pressure was completely off. I say this all the time. It's Dirk Nowitzki in the 2006 finals when he choked to the Heat, and then Dirk Nowitzki in the 2011 finals when he took out LeBron, D-Wade, and Bosh. Night and day in how he played. Well, one of them, no one expected him to ball out, and so he just could play free.
Caleb, you know what I predicted on Friday that didn't happen? That Tennessee would have something new and inventive offensively, and they really didn't. That I saw, what would have been nice is on that 4th down conversion, something new and inventive. If you're going to go for it, you and I disagree philosophically, but if you're going to go for it on your own end, it'd be nice to have a Princeton fan at a fullback that could surprise somebody and pick it up, even an end around. I mean, that worked at Miami on a 4th and goal from the 3-yard line back in, what was that, 2003? 2003, I'm old. So Percy says 4th and inches from the shotgun, 4th and 3 from the shotgun. I don't know how you don't have something else in there besides the shotgun. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I get it. That's the offense.
Yeah, the 4th and inches, you don't even need to play. You need a quarterback sneak. There's no reason. It drives me crazy. You need a quarterback sneak, and that's it.
And I'm very sorry to interrupt, Caleb, but a team that runs with tempo, you shouldn't even think about it. They should be out there before the defense can be set. All you're doing is running a quarterback sneak.
Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest part, and this is maybe a veteran move by Joe Milton. One, there was a play, I don't know if you saw in the game, where Malachi Moore was not on Squirrel White on the outside, and Joe Milton didn't snap the ball, and there was a panic by Alabama. They're like, somebody get on Squirrel White, and it was supposed to be Malachi Moore. Joe Milton didn't know to snap it in time at that point. And you need to have like a signal that says, all right, we're snapping it now, don't you? And
yeah, it's a goose. I mean, you don't even say ready, down, set. It's goose, go.
Yeah, exactly.
What does the 27 and unanswered points coming out of the half say? I want to ask you that, Caleb, and get your thoughts. It's brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. HempHouseChat.com, HempHouseChat.com. That 27 points said that this team doesn't have the maturity. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were supposed to answer the question. Doesn't have the maturity and the moxie to slow that type of run down. It wasn't Columbia, but it kind of felt Columbia-ish that the game was just sliding away and Tennessee could do nothing to stop it.
It didn't feel Columbia-ish to me, and I'll push back on that, and I'll tell you why. It felt like first half.
Not that they were falling apart, but just you got to score and stop 27 in a row is my point.
Right. It felt like Florida earlier this year, where the defense was wilting because the offense couldn't stay on the field. And by the way, it's kind of one of those, this Tennessee team you're noticing, because it's the second time this happened. They're a team of runs almost. Like it's like a basketball analogy, but it applies in football, where some team just pours it on with an onslaught because the offense isn't. And so the key play to me, and I'm going to write about this, the turning point wasn't Alabama scoring the touchdown in the first to open the second half. Because Dave, you and I knew this. You said it on Friday. Jalen Milroe was going to get those deep shots. He's got 1 or 2 a game, right? And
no question.
Yeah, and so he hits a deep shot. You're Tennessee, you don't panic. Here's what happens. The next drive, one player signals to not field a kickoff, and then the other fields the kickoff. So they have to take the ball at the 4. I've never seen that rule called ever in the history of football, by the way. And I'm not saying the officials were wrong for it. I'm sure that somebody, I didn't see who signaled it, but someone does that. One, you never wave off a kickoff return for the record, but that spots in the ball at the 4. Dave, you and I know.
You shouldn't have to point that out, but you did.
Yeah, exactly. But that spots Tennessee the ball at the 4. Dave, you and I know Josh Heupel couldn't run his offense. He ran it 3 times and punted because he's like, I'm on the road and I'm backed up on the 4. I can't try to throw it right now or make any plays. So Tennessee gave up a drive.
Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Like and subscribe. We're going to bring some more people in here. Heath says, I think Joe has an elevation problem in how hard he throws the ball to many overthrows. We've discussed that before, but it leads me into this point. Yes, I think he throws a heavy ball, but this leads me to this point. If Jalen Milroe is starting for Tennessee and Joe Milton is starting for Alabama, who wins this game?
I still think Alabama wins this game.
I
think Alabama wins this game. I thought quarterback would be, again, to me, the difference was that waved off kickoff return, which that's either somebody screwed that up, either the ref or a player. I don't know who, but that, and then the offensive line couldn't get the run game going. It was really that simple.
Saban wasn't rattled whatsoever at halftime. That, according to Charles McFall. No, he wasn't. He felt like they were going to get it back on track. He felt like he had taken Tennessee's best shot in the first half. I think the mid-game heading to the locker room interview kind of hinted at that. He said they were going to be fine and bring it down. And then Daniel says, I'm pretty happy with the performance. Listen, the idea is to go out there and win every single football game. And next year especially, you're not going to say, oh, you went toe-to-toe with Georgia on the road in 2024, and you should be happy with that. Those days are soon to be over for me and probably Caleb too. But again, you went toe-to-toe in a physical game with Alabama, with them madder than Hornets about you beating them last year, and you had a chance to win the game, and you actually dominated it for about 2 quarters. That is a sign of things going in the right direction. Call me the eternal optimist. Call me, you know I'm not a homer. People that have followed my work know I'm not a homer. Call me that if you want to, but this is a trend and things going the right direction. There was every chance that Joe Milton was going to go out there and play a poor game, that Tennessee was not going to be able to move the ball, score a grand total of 10 points, and Alabama pounded at them and scored about 28, and it's a 28-10 game. There was a strong chance that could happen, and it didn't, Caleb.
Yeah. And Tennessee, again, they're not where they want to be talent-wise and roster-wise yet. And they weren't going to be by year 3, not to mention the fact that now you could say this may be a concern long-term evaluating talent, but they whiffed on 2 key transfers this year. They whiffed on Andre Carrick, and they whiffed on, sorry, I just have to name him again, Dante Thornton. Did you see they put him in for 1 play and he managed to get a drop?
Yeah, Dante Drops is not helping Tennessee out.
Drop Tay Thornton?
Yeah, Dante Drops instead of Randy Moss, as he was compared to. Gary Harper say they completely took Squirrel out of the game in the second half. We have to have another receiver step up. Thornton shouldn't see the field the rest of the year. Ship him back to Oregon. Say something delightful while I cough. I've been battling a cold all week.
That's fine. I actually thought Tennessee had Ramel Keaton step up when he needed to in the second half, and I thought there were some plays there. I think there was a personnel mistake. I don't think they should have used Caleb Webb. They should have had Chaz Nimrod in there. I think Nimrod is better. I think there was a one-on-one play down the sideline that I think Nimrod actually wins that battle. That was an incomplete pass.
I'm going to tell you why I think Nick Saban was confident going in the locker room at half. He saw that they didn't need a roll coverage towards what was once Brew McCoy's way. And he saw he could play them straight up and that the slot receiver wasn't going to be running free like he was in the first half with Squirrel White. I think that's clearly exactly what happened, Caleb. I think he looked out there and he saw, I don't see a Cedric Tillman. I don't see a Brew McCoy with the injury that I have to roll coverage over and dictate coverage. Just don't see it. So that's why Squirrel was brought out. Now, you mentioned that Kentucky has more to prepare for with a good Joe. They also have more to prepare for knowing that Tennessee couldn't beat them with that X receiver position, played by now Nimrod, who I think is going to be the guy who is going to go at it for the remainder of the season. Keep an eye on Webb, but it seems like Tennessee likes to settle on these guys. More comments from the message board as we want to get you on. Hit that like button, smash the like button, smash the like button. Milton is absolutely not throwing the games. Well, of course he's not throwing the games. Who really thinks that? I like Charles's input a lot. Charles said, great teams win on the road. We don't win on the road unless it's Missouri Vanderbilt. Questioning a lot right now. That was a meltdown like no other. Or was it a game that Tennessee played incredibly well and had the lead, and they're still trending the right way? So, Charles, you and I agree on a lot as you've been a part of the program and what we do for a long time. I think it's a program trending in the right way, and Tennessee manufactured some points to be able to be able to look like they were in control at halftime. But as you mentioned from the line of scrimmage, did you ever think that Tennessee was in control? I mean, they pushed Alabama around last year. Go back and watch that tape if you don't believe me.
Yeah, they did. Darnell Wright won that game last year, shut down Will Anderson, and then Javonte Spraggins, Cooper Mason, Jerome Carvin were elite in the interior. That just wasn't the same this year. It's hard for me to say it was a road issue because there weren't many. While there were some penalties that were a problem, there weren't pre-snap penalties really in this game. Like, you didn't see a collection of pre-snap penalties the whole game. Did you, Dave? Did you notice any pre-snap issues for Tennessee? I didn't really.
No, I think those are pretty much gone when Cooper May stepped back on the field.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's where you talk about the road issues because they were clearly there against Florida. And I didn't see that in this game. So I can't really say it was a road. Look, there were a few. With any football game, you can bring up like 5 to 10, like 5 plays that changes the complexion of a game, but you can't have those 5 plays when you're playing Alabama. One was the kickoff to the 4-yard line that you had to spot. Again, you can blame the refs. I don't know. Maybe it was their fault. I got to go back. I did not see anybody wave somebody off. So, and just breaking news real quick, I want to bring this in. Josh Heupel was asked about the officiating in his post-game press conference, and he paused, and then he said, next question, which is kind of a revealing thing to say, honestly.
Yeah, and he made an officiating hint like that early in the season, too. So I don't think Tennessee's being targeted, but I do think Tennessee's gotten the short end of the stick officiating. I think that stuff reads itself out over the course of a 30-year career, but pretend you're a guy who has 4 or 5 years of eligibility, and then it doesn't even itself out. Daniel says, man, this chat room needs some Big Orange Crunch. Well, I got it right here. I can't give it to you 50% off, but if you go to our good friends at the Hemp House here in Chattanooga, the Hemp House is the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, and you can get 10% off with the promo code HOOKED, and this according to a poster saying Bama is just more seasoned, and we are still a year or two ahead of where we should be able to. Some folks, we are still growing. Not season maturity wise. I think Tennessee is seasoned maturity wise, which surprises me to say that in year 3. Surprised me even more to say it in year 2. Where Alabama is more seasoned is the adding the flour in the roux of the gumbo that gives you the base, and that's after your first 44 players, after you're 2 deep. That to me is where it's a little bit different.
Yeah, that's a huge difference. And that's just call it what it is. Tennessee can't replace Brew McCoy. Tennessee couldn't replace Kamal Hadden. Alabama can replace a banged up nickel who's guarding Squirrel White. You know what I mean? They can live with that. And that's the difference. Tennessee couldn't replace a Cooper Mays at the beginning of the year. Where Tennessee wants to get is where they were in 1998, where Jamal Lewis goes down with the season-ending injury, and you don't feel like they missed a beat. Or Florida State in 1998 loses Chris Winkie, and Marcus Alton comes out, beats Florida, and gets them to the national title game. And Tennessee's nowhere near that yet. And again, the kickoff play I bring up, the other one, we love him, but the Jacob Warren holding play killed a drive. You can't have those type of mistakes. Now, that wasn't Jacob Warren's fault. I think he was desperately trying to sneak in a hold because he knew that the play was getting blown up already. If you saw that play, I think a lot of times linemen and tight ends do that. And
yeah, I think there are times you're better off holding than getting your quarterback killed. So I would have
Yeah,
to go back and look at that play a couple
it was a
more
screen
times.
pass that they snuffed out, but because they snuffed it out, Warren kind of thought, yeah, risk a 1st and 20 instead of a 2nd and 13, and maybe you won't get caught with the 1st and 20.
By the way, just for fun, Dirty Higgins said, "Eat it, Dave." Okay. And then you have Ava saying, "Seriously, refs are straight up ignoring the rule block on the field. Ball should have been a touchback on the kickoff, not on the 4-yard line. Completely changed momentum. Won't even start on the holds." I hate to open this Pandora's box, Caleb.
We have to.
Okay. Are the officials older coaches like Nick Saban do not like nouveau riche? I'm sure you know what that means. Nouveau riche, somebody wins the lottery and they're spending money left and right. They didn't come from old school money. They don't know how to handle it. Are some, because of what Tennessee did last year, are some of the officials slightly anti Tennessee? Dirty said he meant eat the big orange crumbs. I'm tearing into it here in just a second. But are some of the officials kind of anti-Tennessee subconsciously because they're nouveau riche? They hit it too quick, too easy. They jump to the front of the line.
I don't think that. I think now maybe there is some slide. Maybe Heupel has said or done some things like you mentioned that maybe has turned some officials against him. Look, I just think it's this, and I've said this. I've been on a soapbox about this for a long time. I think officials are overworked and underpaid. I don't know if you. That's all it is. The SEC doesn't pay their officials full time. This is the result of what happens when you don't have full-time refs. Refs should be studying. Refs should have a full-time job, and they should be studying tendencies for teams the whole week leading up to the game.
No, I agree with you. The NFL doesn't either, though, and it works a little bit.
It's a problem in the NFL.
Well, it's a problem in the NFL, too. So I just look at Tennessee. The one question mark I have, and it doesn't come down to one play, is why Tennessee doesn't seem to have a better short yardage package. I hate to say this, but it kind of reminds me of Butch Jones when they'd have it on 1st and goal at the 1-yard line and they're lining up in a 2-man stance or a 2-point stance. Their offensive line is, and I just thought, barf. I mean, if you can't put a hand down, now they didn't do that. Tennessee didn't do that today, but if you can't put a hand down and get a push of a yard to get a first down, that to me is befuddling.
It's what makes you miss. And he was not the biggest X's and O's guy, but it's what you miss about Phillip Fulmer, isn't it? Fulmer was never going to get in shotgun on a 4th and 1. He was going to get his guys to line up, and he was like, you beat your man straight up, period, end of story.
If I'm not just Phillip Fulmer, Caleb, and I don't want to jump on Josh Heupel, he's forgotten more ball than we'll ever know, okay? But why is that even a consideration on 4th and short or on goal line? Why is that? Why is shotgun even in the hemisphere?
This is showing up. Again, it's what I brought up. This is why, and Tennessee is a victim of a trend in football. Red zone play is horrible right now. And it's not just 4th and 1, 4th and inches. It's 1st and goal from the 10 or 1st and goal from the 7. Dave, what's happening is, I think one of the trends you thought about that was happening in football is actually ruining football, which is the idea of the running quarterback that has to be mobile. I think they are not being taught to go through progressions the way they should. And therefore, in the short yard, you know this, once you get inside the 10-yard line, your speed as a quarterback's irrelevant.
Well, the great ones are still doing it right. Bryce Young was doing it right last year, right? He was going through progressions.
Yes, he was.
Hendon Hooker kept his eyes downfield. Jalen Milroe drops his eyes a little too soon for me. To be honest with you, though, on the flip side, to argue the other side, I think Joe Milton keeps his eyes up a little too long. I think there are times he should drop them and run. That's an innate talent, and we've already talked about when it comes to game time, some of those innate talents. Sorry, guys, I don't think Joe Milton has them.
Well, I agree, but even at the NFL level, it's Lamar Jackson's issue. Field gets short 10 yards, he can't get it in the end zone because his accuracy is not there. Josh Allen, 10 yards, can't get it in the end zone. Accuracy is not there. Red zone offenses are collapsing right now because quarterbacks are not learning how to go through progressions, and they're not as accurate as they used to be because coaches feel like they don't need it given their athleticism. And Joe Milton's a prime example of that. And Ben, you're right. Like Hendon Hooker, you knew you were getting a touchdown. But last year, I don't know why this play, to your point on 4th and short, they did line up under center a lot last year. I don't know why that left the playbook.
They did.
What did you recruit Khalifa Keith for?
I don't know. I guess he's not ready. Weekend Street said, I disagree with him. I think the roster is a lot closer now. Years past, Tennessee hardly had a chance. Good news for UT fans is Tennessee starting to level the playing field. Yes, it's closer, but if Alabama is an A roster and Georgia is an A plus roster, Tennessee's a B roster. They were a C or D not long ago.
Yeah, guys, we can track this like analytically. The 247 talent composite rating has Tennessee at number 16 right now, factoring in transfers and recruiting rankings of all transfers and commitments on the roster. Tennessee's the 16th best team. That's middle of the pack with the SEC because you're talking Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, LSU. I'm just going through the list. Florida too. They're all better than Tennessee right now in terms of the actual composite talent on their team. And by the way, 247 Sports composite rankings, they favor Tennessee because Tennessee has such an online presence. So it's a big deal.
Gary's saying we lined up under center for 4th and short last year with a smaller QB. That's what Caleb brought up. I don't get it. This is according to Justin, this is a 60-minute game on the road. Got to play a complete game. Joe didn't lose the game, but he didn't do enough to win it either. So even in a loss, does Joe earn a little bit of respect here? Maybe?
Yeah, I don't think Joe had a lot of chances to go win the game. Now, he missed some throws in the second half once the game got away. There was a third down out route that he just flat out missed Jacob Warren. It was one of those overthrows again.
And there was the 4th down pass too that you've got to throw it up for grabs. You can't float it out of bounds. It's not a throwaway play.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't make that mistake.
I'm sorry. I throw it straight. You can, if you want to, throw it 20 yards straight up in the air to fall in the middle of the end zone. That's better than the
have a bunch of receivers bunch up and like try to tip the ball or whatever. Or also, look, you're playing probabilities here and it's a desperate anyway, but like last play of the game with 10 seconds, you don't throw a short yard, 5-yard route to try to get in the end zone. You throw a Hail Mary, see if you convert it, go for the onside kick and go for another Hail Mary.
I'm going to ask you one question, and I'm super interested to see what you think about this. On that 4th down, late in the third quarter, if Tennessee kicks that ball and with their special teams play, do they have the ball towards the end of the game with a chance to tie or win it?
I mean,
you're second guessing your punt theory.
No, because you're talking like, this is like the old peel the wings off a butterfly. How much does that alter the future? If you go back in time and peel the wings off a butterfly, how much does that alter? It'll cause this to this to this. Because I don't know if the flow of the game results in the strip sack. What I do know is I think Josh Heupel legitimately and rightly. So no, I can't say they do because
Carl says yes. He's in charge.
Here's what y'all are both missing. Dave, Josh Heupel knew the game was getting away from him at that point. And Alabama had just scored 10 straight points. Tennessee's front 7 was tired. They had been on the field a little bit too much in the second half. They weren't getting the pressure up front in the interior to Amari Thomas and Omar Norman Lott. That's why you saw Omar Norman Lott jump off sides how many times on one drive? And it was definitely 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were tired and they were trying to time the snap count because they weren't winning the battles. Heupel was sensing that and he wanted to keep the offense on the field. That's what that was.
I'll beg to differ a little bit. I think that he should have punted the ball, but I get your point. Daryl says put it in Nico, get him ready. Joe is a joke. That to me is way too strong. You can still win 10 games, probably not going to, but you can definitely still win 9. I thought Nico should have played significant snaps in case something, let's say, went awry at Alabama. All right. But it didn't, not because of Joe. And so I'm going to take that statement back that I don't think that Nico necessarily needed to get real game snaps early in the season. So I'm going to walk that back. I admit when I was wrong. Joe Milton went to Alabama, had Tennessee with a significant lead, and could have won that game. I'm going to say could have won that game if some officiating calls go the other way. I did not like the 4th down call. You and I differ, but could have won that game or at least had the ball in his hand with a chance to tie or go ahead. That was pretty close to happening. And Caleb, if you're in that position in what I think is a bit of a rebuilding year, I think you're in good shape. I'm going to ask you a double-sided question, which is horrible journalism. Smoky Mountain Red says, damn it. Smoky Mountain Red, I think you pretty much summed it up for everybody. One positive, one negative from this game. May I go first?
Sure.
Positive, I think Joe Milton. I think he played better. I think this was the ultimate proof, if he needed it, that Tennessee's coaches believe in him and want him to be the guy. Negative, I don't think Tennessee has a guy that's going to dictate coverage at wide receiver. I don't think he's on the roster. Well, he is, but he's hurt.
Okay. Positive. I mean, can I say the same thing that you said for the positive, or do I have to say something different?
Now, you can say the same thing.
I think that's a huge
When I'm right, I'm right, baby.
So positive is, Joe Milton has totally changed the offense with his runs. Negatives, Tennessee's not the dominant team on the interior of the offensive line that we thought they were. They're good, but they're not. They can't win weekly one-on-one matchups with 5 stars that are well coached, because they didn't win the matchups this week. And
bottom line, if you want to jump on Josh Heupel and you want to be upset about that, go for it. But Tennessee is a Cooper Mays injury away from just having one loss towards the end of October.
With everything to play for. Yeah.
And that's still everything to play for. And we're not even talking about Keenan Pilley. We're not even talking about Brew McCoy. Everybody has injuries, I know. But Tennessee's, man, if we pick 5 guys that you don't want to get injured, those 3 that I mentioned are in the top 5, right?
They're absolutely in the top 5. Dave, I wanted to ask you this too, and this is a question for you, because I'm talking about how they didn't run the ball well, and I'm coming down hard on him, but on the running game. But am I being unfair, and should I direct that towards Josh Heupel? Did Josh Heupel do what you and John Adams and Jimmy Hyams have all told me Steve Spurrier was guilty of doing back in the day, which is get away from the run game too quickly sometimes out of impatience?
Yeah, but I thought you gave such an insightful answer to kind of your own question just then, that he felt like the line of scrimmage was getting away from him. So I'm going to say no. Based off what you said, you asked a question that you already provided.
Well, I was questioning myself. I'm like, what was the line of scrimmage getting away from him, or did he let it get away because he didn't stay committed to the run game? Like, there was both those red zone drives inside the 10 that ended in field goals. He kept the ball in Joe Milton's hands all 6 times on those 2 trips to the red zone.
Yep. Charles saying not Joe's fault that they lost the game. The psychological impact of the third quarter is what made the difference. Do I trust Joe with 15 seconds, i.e. like last season? No, sir. And I don't either. But the entire 15 minutes of the third quarter was not Joe Milton's fault. Now, does this change? It actually changes my philosophy on Nico, because I think you could make a hard argument that once you lose 2 games, as long as Nico's over 200 pounds, you get him serious action to go out there and be ready for next season. But really, it changes my mind, because I think 9 or 10 games are still on the table. I think that's an impressive season. Dirty Higgins says, are we recruiting well enough to be a better team next year? They're number 7 or 9 in the rankings. Caleb, help me with that. I think they are, but it's some of their mid guys, like, not to pick one guy out, but Addison Nichols, that has to kind of take that next step. And but yes, they're recruiting at a level right now to do what they did today, and that's stand toe to toe with Alabama. Are they recruiting at a level to go out and beat Alabama and Georgia consistently? No, but nobody else is either. William Black said, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and they should be much deeper at the issues where the injuries hurt them this year. I mean, where did they load up with this class, Dave? They loaded up on the offensive line. And they also have another receiver that should be able to dictate coverage in Mike Matthews, who committed. That's the type of receiver we're talking about when we say receivers who should dictate coverage, right? And that's what they expect him to do.
You know who they are. Like, you look at a receiver, and you're like, oh, one cornerback cannot guard him unless they happen to have Deion Sanders or Charles Woodson. No offense to Peyton Manning and the Heisman and all that stuff. Sorry, but Ford. Charles says, absolutely, Dave, we can beat UGA at home. Thank you. With the way they play today, they can. So you've got to.
And also, Georgia might be writing off Tennessee now, so don't sleep on that. It's not going to have the same hype it had last year.
No, it won't, which is a little bit sad, because that was going to be a late season hype game. It was going to be pretty cool. It's
the saddest thing for me, because Tennessee has never had a explosively important, meaningful November home game. You might bring up Arkansas in 98 when both were top 10, but I think Tennessee went into that game thinking they were significantly better than Arkansas, and were shocked that Arkansas played on their level.
Well, great stuff. We're with you each and every weekday from at 10 a.m. We'll join you for about an hour and a half, 2 hours or so, and we'll have the latest on the Vols. Also, Sunday, a big day. Hit like and subscribe right now. Take a second and go ahead and hit the subscribe button right now, because coming up Sunday, we'll have the Fall Report with Jacob Warren, the Vol Report with Cooper Mays, and also that Sunday show with Fred White. You won't know they dropped unless your notifications are on. Leave us a review on the audio platform, which is just all out exploding. So we appreciate that. So Tennessee loses to Alabama 34-20 in a game that felt a little bit closer, in a game that at one point you thought that Tennessee might be able to actually win that game in comfortable fashion, but that wasn't the case. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.